a seat at the table with some men with confidence.
Welcome to the Open Mics podcast by meninconfidence sharing, and we are joined today by the full crew. We have Sean, we have Terrence, and we have Rhino with us. And I am the host, Tony, and we're just going to go ahead and get started with our first topic. First topic for today is putting parents on a pedestal. When we're growing up, a lot of times we don't realize how imperfect our parents are and what they do right versus what they do wrong. So I'm going to ask everyone, what are your thoughts on putting your parents on a pedestal?
That's a good one. I don't know whether anybody else want to go first, or did I grab the hot mic just now?
You got it.
Alright, so I'll grab it and take off because, when I first saw like that type of topic, when we started talking about, we were going to talk about parents being put on a pedestal. A lot of people don't think about it. I know when I was younger, I was a little bit spoiled. I'll just be for real. For a period of my life, I was actually spoiled. And during that period was when my parents became superheroes. They became superhuman. They became something else. It was sort of like, mom and dad can do anything, all the advice they were giving me seemed to be spot on and everything like that. I could make mistakes, but my parents couldn't. And then that shifted. I won't go into details with everything that happened, but it shifted, and pretty early on me, and I was about 12 years old, and it shifted, and all of a sudden I had to go through, some struggles because I had to, and it took a while. It was a psyche that was not easy to break, because I had to go through something to realize, hey, my parents were not superhuman. They were just human. They were not invincible. They were just people. You know what I mean? And things happen to people. People are flawed. We all have our mistakes that we have to get through, learn from in life. Nobody's perfect. You hear these terms, but I'm not gonna kid y'all. I was right there with like, hey, those are my parents. Y'all don't know my parents. Sean's parents is it. It's just that was it. It raising me and my brother. I don't know about your parents, but my parents is straight. Will Smith talking about my parents don't understand and everything like that. Shouts out to Will. Nah, my parents understood. I was like, you don't understand about my parents. My parents on top of the cave, cuz. And it was something that I did. And then, like I said, I had to. It really was a struggle to get out of that mindset and to realize that, okay, no, my parents are just human. They didn't fail. It was like, don't get me wrong. I was like, okay, sure, they make some mistakes and things like that, but it was really a longer journey than what I'm saying to get all the way to that point of they were just people. You know what I'm saying? And people are flawed. People do things. They have to get through things, keep going, and and make it on the opposite end. But you don't think. Like I said, people don't think in terms of, oh, I put my parents up here and then I had to come down there. But I went through that explicitly. So I definitely want to say that, maybe start the conversation off with that when I first saw it. So.
Okay, so I want to jump in on it as well. And I can't say that I have the same experience as Sean, with like parents being up on this pedestal, right? Because number one, I only grew up with one of them. So that already put one of them at a disadvantage because he wasn't there. So yeah, his pedestal was non-existent, right? And mom's pedestal and mom's perch over time kind of diminished. And what I mean by that is, the older I got, I think teenagers kind of go through this phase of thinking they know better. So we went through that, we went through that phase of me thinking I knew everything, and I was, that whole parents just don't understand thing you were talking about, Sean. I'll lean into that a little bit, not necessarily in regards to what Will was talking about in the song, but moms just ain't get it, right?
Gotcha.
But then, as I got older, it turned into not mom not understanding. I don't understand her. I didn't get what was going on, and it just kind of flipped in a sense, like I don't know this person anymore to a certain extent, because I watched my younger siblings do things, say things, be in places, live and act in a way that I felt was completely foreign to me, and like there's no way on God's green earth I could have done any of this. How are they doing this? I don't understand. And that led to me thinking things through a little bit further, and was like, okay, you know what? At the end of the day, there's 5 of us. Mom had a lot going on with 5 kids and trying to manage 5 different personalities. And, unfortunately, I can't even say it was like all the same parents, like same fathers. It is what it is. But that played a role into how things were doled out and how things were handled with some of the other siblings. We never felt any distance or differences between ourselves or any disconnects, but there was definitely some of that to deal with too. It just became this real odd situation. So I say all of that to say that the parent pedestal for me was one of the things where mom started in a good place, but over time, because I started thinking about her and seeing her differently, her pedestal changed. Now, I still love my mom and I have respect for my mom, and I'm not like trying to bash her or anything like that, but it just became one of those relationships where as time progressed, like you were saying, I started to see her as an individual and less like a superhero or less like a person who was infallible. And at that point, I had to kind of take a step back and just say, you know what? Instead of trying to understand and figure all of this out, I just got to deal with the person that I have here in front of me on a one-to-one level, but also still apply a little bit more respect because I wouldn't be here without them.
So it makes me think about this. Like when we think about us growing up when we were younger, and when we envision our parents, we tend to think of them being aged and wise and sage-like. And we don't like compare ourselves at a very similar age. So imagine being like when we were little and our parents were raising us, a lot of them were in their 20s and 30s, right? And I think about myself in 20s and 30s, and I was stupid. I was dumb as a brick. Like I shouldn't have been responsible for, a pet monkey or a dog or a goldfish, let alone a human being, right? And I think that's one of the things that, like, there's like a little bit of sparkle when you think about your parents. There's a little bit of gleam and shine because you're just like, it seemed like they had it together. Even if you were poor, even if you were, eating ramen noodles and fried bologna sandwiches, or even better, mayonnaise sandwiches. Sugar, water, vanilla, the drink of champions, But it was special, it was top notch back then. But so we're talking about things that our parents being on pedestals, our parents being almost holier than thou, just so high up. have your parents fallen since then? Like, and you don't have to go into detail, but have your parents fallen, and how far?
Well, I did kind of say over time, yet mom's standings fell a little bit. And again, that sounds probably harsher than probably how I intended to, but it has, and I feel like it's changed for me, especially now as a parent, right? As a parent, I think to myself, there's no way I could allow my son to be, especially now thinking about him at 14 and me at 14. I had a conversation with him a couple days ago, and I was like, thank God he is not thinking like I was at that age, because jeez Louise, that would be a whole problem. And I think the reason I was thinking the way that I was at that age was because I didn't necessarily have the same structure. Mom had boundaries and limitations, but they were not 100% hard and fast rules. They were more kind of like guidelines, and there was wiggle room, and I tested the wiggle room, and it was probably not the best idea to allow so much wiggle room. So I don't think I hover and like necessarily over parent, but at the same time, like, I try to keep a better eye on the situation and make sure that he stays within the lines a lot more so than I did, just for sake of safety and not finding yourself in situations that you don't need to be in at that age.
Excuse us, I think we're having audio difficulties. All right, go ahead, Sean.
Rhino?
Well, I've been having difficulties all night. It just is what it is. So I'm on my iPhone now. But my experience with my parents was somewhat the same. But maybe my perspective is a little bit different. I mean, I was born into this world. I didn't know up from down, left from right. I just thought everything was everything. And it wasn't until I began to get older that things began to open up to me and my understanding became clear. And I understood, hey, that's not normal. But I accepted a lot of things that happened. So if my mother was flawed, she wasn't any less flawed or any more flawed than anybody else, I don't think. She gave me a good foundation on which to base my life. And I still have mom in my head. I was just thinking how she wouldn't let me watch Def Comedy Jam. And I'm like, Mom, I'm 17 years old. Why can't I listen to watch the comedy show? Well, she didn't think it was appropriate. And I'm like, you should go with me throughout my day. Go with me throughout my day and see what I experience. And see the things that I hear, and from my peers, and listen to the things I've said myself, But she gave me the structure that I needed to grow up. And then my dad came into the picture when I met him for the first time when I was 8 years old. And I thought this was normal. I knew a lot of people who were raised by their moms and their dad wasn't necessarily there. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that this isn't normal. And I held some resentment against my dad because he wasn't there the way that I felt he should have been. And then I crossed another stage of my life from child to teenager to adult. And when I became an adult, then so many things started clicking, and I realized, oh, that was why my mom wouldn't be with my dad, because he had issues that were beyond her ability to deal with. And a lot of things, I'm not going to go into detail, that took place happened that caused him to not be there. But it was necessary that he wasn't there. And I'm actually glad, because I wouldn't be the same guy that you're talking to today if he was there all the time. But my point is this. I just thought everything was normal. I thought everything was how it was supposed to be. I actually looked at people who had both parents as weird for some reason. But as I got older, I realized that I was the weird one with only being raised in a single parent home. But I understood why. And I appreciate the foundation that my mother did give me, the basis upon which she did give me to build my life. I appreciate her for that. And considering all the bad things that happened between us in terms of our relationship and things that she did that were negative, I don't even remember those things anymore. I remember them, but they're overshadowed by the good things. So that was my experience with my parents.
I'm not sure I'm still on. So I think, okay, now we came back. All right, there we go. I was just running my mouth a little bit earlier, like nobody heard anything I said. But it was a quick point, just to revamp and just, building off of what Tony asked. Did our parents fall something? It's like, the unfortunate answer is yes with me, especially as Terrence is saying, when you started comparing them to yourself. Right? My parents basically taught me things after that level. When they came down, they basically taught me things in reverse. It was one of those things where it's like, I call it in reverse. I learned by seeing y'all, I learned kind of what not to do. I learned the consequences of it by seeing it firsthand. It was like, okay, so I made up my mind. I can't do that. I'm scared to do that. It was actually really a fear that driven me, that got me to a point where it was like, okay, I have to be a provider because I'm scared of what it looks like if I don't. I can't be, dealing with substances or whatever because I've seen it, so I'm scared of what it looks like if I, do let that come in and mess up my life. I know that as a human person, when you start thinking about humans, if my superhuman, parents can come down to this level, they made me. I'm not at a level where I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I'm better than them and this and that. I got to that point where it was like, if I'm going to be, it was going to take some effort, and that was where I was with it. So, but of course, once they get down to a point where it's like, okay, we're just individuals. Everybody's doing what they're what we all can do. We all fall. We have our mistakes. There's no manual. Everybody will tell you that real quick. You find that out fast when you're digging, looking for the manual. And I don't care about Dr. Brown and Dr. whoever and Dr. whatever who made a book that seems to make all the sense in the world. When you try to apply it to your life, it still might not make sense. So there's no manual. You just fly by what you can do for you. And, in absentia, I appreciate my parents for what they did do, like I say, in reverse. Somehow it worked out where I took that type of path because I could see it so clearly up front. It was just like, okay, thank y'all for showing me what not to do. I'll come off it right there.
Okay, so one of the things that we were talking about is parents being put on a pedestal, and then to the point where they start to fall. And we're also talking about comparing them to ourselves as parents, or just comparing them to ourselves as adults. Now that you can see life through an adult's eyes, I know that you can see holes and flaws in your parents. So how do you deal with that? And how do you fix those holes and flaws in yourself?
Okay. So go ahead, Ronald. Go ahead. I'm not gonna take that one. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I looked at my dad and I knew immediately that I did not want to be like this guy. But I noticed there's something that I did growing up. I remember the lessons that he taught me because he's the reason why I'm the workaholic that I am. Because he told me, if you get anything out of this life, it'll be because you worked for it and because you worked hard for it. Now, after we buried him a year ago, I've learned his perspective on that. And it was from a selfish place. I accept that. It was from a selfish place. But the way that I took it was, whoa, my dad just dropped a gem on me. I've got to use this. And ever since then, I've done my best to work as hard as I can. I want, when I leave a job, I want my boss to be sad. I don't want to lose this one. Yes, you're going to lose this one. So the lessons that he's taught me, the lessons that my mom has taught me, all of those things, I took all the good and positive things and applied them to my life. And that has made the biggest difference in my life. I have done my best to avoid the pitfalls that they stepped in. Granted, some of them unsuccessfully, but at the place that I am now, I'm at a better place, I believe, than they both were in terms of how I approach people and how I deal with things and how I look at myself. So just canceling out the negative things and just looking at and focusing on the positive things, that's helped me out most. I even think about teachers that I've had in school. This is the same thing. Some of them were not the best people, but they were in that position to where a lot of times they dropped some real gems. Even one of the teachers that I had the biggest problem with shared with me some real things that have helped me out and helped me out to this day. So I look at it from that perspective. I don't focus on the negative. I don't latch on to, oh, she didn't get me this for Christmas. Even though I have those memories of not receiving what I wanted for Christmas, they don't overshadow all the good lessons I've had and all the structure that was placed in me. And out of everyone in this group, I'm the only one that doesn't have kids. I believe that if I had kids, I believe that, well, I kind of, it depends on how I feel. Some days I feel like I'll probably make a bad parent, but right now I feel like with the tools and the encouragement and those gold nuggets and those gems that I would give and those lessons I was given as a child, I believe I have something good that I can pass on to a child.
That's all right. I like that. You came. I think Terrence had came on and then you went back off. I was just commenting on Ronald's statement. You can grab it. Terrence.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were about to go in or not, so I was gonna, be polite and allow you to go do your thing. But
I love the respect we have for each other when we doing this, man.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
But so how's the comparison work, right? I feel like I always kind of start answering these questions in my previous statements, but if I was going to talk about comparisons, from my dad, even though he wasn't present, that's what I learned. Being present, being absolutely hands-on and involved, and I was like such a obsessive, like crazed father with my first child. Like, I wanted to be involved in everything, from cutting the cord to changing diapers to, feeding, washing, baby, nap time, story time, all of that stuff. Second child, I've come to realize that over time, as you have kids, there's the sliding scale, right? The first kid, you have all these pictures and memories and stuff of all of their stuff that they did in their first this, first that, etc. But by the time you get to that second, third, fourth, or whatever, the one at the baby, there's like less and less baby pictures. You almost kind of expect them to take off running on their own a little bit. Like, look, you got too many examples around here for me to have to sit here and handhold you or whatever. So, not so much with my second, but still involved because that's my boy. And the interesting thing with him is now that he's gotten older, I feel even more compelled to be involved and engaged with him because I know what it is to be a 14-year-old boy. And I remember those times specifically feeling like, man, I just wish I had like some dude that I could talk to on a regular basis who could give me more. And that's not a shot at anybody here because all of you knew me at that age. And I appreciate the stuff that I got from you guys at that age. But in all reality, we were the blind leading the blind. So it wasn't like we were getting great advice sometimes. I seem to recall an incident where one of us, probably me, egged on some others, probably Rhino and maybe Sean. Let's see if we can break this window. Right? Type of stuff that we did. So, but anyway, so Dad taught me being present through his absence. Mom, on the other hand, I think the lesson that I got from her the most was consistency. And even though I didn't feel like I understood her all the time, or I didn't get I felt like she was consistent in the sense that she was always present. She was always aware of what we were doing on some level. She knew all of you, which was a big deal to me because it mattered to her who I was with and who I was around. She wanted to be kind of concerned and engaged with, making sure that I didn't fall too far from the tree. I didn't stray too far off the reservation. I was, okay, I know the guys that he's with. They may get into a little stuff. They may cause a little mischief, but I don't have to worry about the law bringing my son to the house on a regular basis or anything like that. So, and she consistently kind of kept that kind of energy with the other siblings as well. So for that, I feel like that's something that I want to try and be as consistent as I can be with my own kids now. I want to be as interested in what my daughters are doing as I am with what he's doing. And trying to make sure that I apply myself and share myself with them as equally as possible.
It's kind of funny because now that we are adults and we have seen our parents parent us, it almost feels like a cheat code in a sense, where you get to see all the good, right?
Right.
And you even get to see the bad, but you get the opportunity to correct the bad. Like you get to take all the good attributes that you got from your parents, mother, father, guardian, whoever raised you, right? And you get to absorb everything that they taught you right and pass that on to the next generation or use that in your day-to-day lives. But you also get to see, they didn't do this well, or they didn't prepare me for this well, or I didn't get this from, my father. I didn't get this from my mother. I didn't get this from my parents. Well, I'm going to make sure that I have that information available, or I have that thing available when it comes time for my own kids, or, whoever needs it in my family, in my community. And being able to patch those holes means the world to me, because the one of the main things that I wouldn't want to do is to repeat the same things. In that, because I know that when I was young, for everything that I was given, for all the blessings that I had questions about a few things. And there was no one to answer those questions. And it's nice to be able to supply answers for another generation, even if it's not my kids, even if they're not, related to me, even if they're not, even if they're not close to me. Like if it's somebody I just run across in the streets, or just in day-to-day, life. It's nice to be able to fill those holes for someone else that I didn't get the chance to experience. But since we're talking about, was somebody about to say something? Okay, just making sure. Okay, so we're talking about parental stuff. We're going to take a tangent. So let's talk about men, us folk, and us being emotional or expressing emotion. You always hear two sides to this. Men should be more expressive in their emotions, or we should just bottle it up and don't say anything because it's not safe. I want to hear your thoughts, and I also want to hear what side of the fence do you fall
on. Well, I'll go ahead and grab this one, because I immediately thought about a situation that I had with my ex, the good one. We were talking about emotions and whatnot, and it was during that conversation with her that I realized, you know what? Even she's heard that men aren't emotional, but we are emotional. We're super emotional. We may not express our emotions quite the way women do, but we're absolutely emotional. I mean, if we were just emotionless, then there would be a problem. You don't want to be around. I wouldn't want to be around someone who's just emotionless, because I'm going to wonder what's wrong with this person, and am I safe? Am I going to have to do something extreme to protect myself? But we're absolutely emotional. Granted, we have to have a tight grip on our emotions. For instance, if something is wrong and I don't want her to know that something is wrong, then she's not going to see me cry about it, because I don't want her to worry about it. Because if she's worried about it, she's going to bother me with it. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Let me take care of it. Just back up, stand down. I'll handle it. I don't even want to have that conversation with a woman. Just don't even worry about it. I got it. I've seen other people do this, and it was just something that I just learned that it's something that I have to do as well, if for nothing else, to keep the peace. Sometimes we gotta say, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong. Even though I know full well I'm right, I've gotta say, you know what, you're right. You're absolutely right. And then let her come full circle and realize, oh, he was protecting me from shame or from being wrong or for whatever by saying that he was right. He knew he was right. In fact, I knew he was right. So, yeah, we're absolutely emotional. Absolutely. But that emotion should be controlled. I'm not saying bottled up to the point that all it needs is a little strike from a match or a little spark and it blows up into something terrible. But it does have to be controlled, and it does need to be properly vented. And one of the ways I vent is gaming. So, yeah.
Now, my response to that is there was an 80s movie, It was called No Retreat, No Surrender.
Surrender. I can remember that. So you were the
Back
other.
down?
So you're the other third. You're the third person that
Give
watched
up?
that movie. It's us three. Me, you, and one other person out there.
Oh boy.
Like, never.
Yes, indeed. Can't remember no parts from the movie, but I remember what you're talking about. So.
Okay,
Alright.
so, where do I land on this emotional thing? It's an interesting place because, you know, I tell my son, you know, you have to work to keep your emotions in check and not allow them to push you one way or the other, especially in times where you need to make a decision or, you know, reach some sort of conclusion, because you don't want to do it rash and just kind of willy-nilly because you're passionate about something in the moment or you're fired up about something in the moment. But then at the same time with my daughter, I'm kind of like trying to show emotion and a certain amount of vulnerability and not be just like uptight and tough all the time, because I think she needs to know that no, dad cares. Dad is receptive and concerned and appreciative of the things you do and worried about the things that you worry about, and I care. So it's been kind of a juggling act to try to maintain a balance there. And I say daughter when I'm talking about both of them, because that is a twofold thing. I have to show care and emotion for one and care and emotion for the other in a different way, and then navigating those waters because they're two completely different people and they receive things two completely different ways. So my emotions are all over the place. But I try to kind of show them as much as I can within still feeling comfortable for myself, because I too grew up with this whole emotions. Show no emotion, nobody care. Man, suck that up, press on, move on. And over time I've come to appreciate that there's a time and a place for everything. And as I say this, I hear my grandfather saying it to me, and I understand it differently now, because I always just kind of thought that it meant there was a time to be serious, there's a time to crack jokes. But that is such a multi-layered statement that applies to so many other things, whether it's, you know, there's a time to, you know, bear down and just kind of push through a tough situation. And there's a time to say, you know what, this might be more than I can stand. I gotta back off it and just let it go or whatever. But it also applies to this emotion conversation. There's a time where you have to just let your emotions out, let them be known, let them be shared, let them be seen. And then there are times where you want to keep that stuff to yourself because it's personal, it's private, it's, you know, something that you may just not feel comfortable with giving to the world or an individual or whatever the case may be because XYZ reason. And again, navigating that delicate balance of when to and when not to has been the challenge.
It absolutely is a challenge. Me and you are right on the same line, Terrence. That's exactly where I was going. Was as I heard, you know, Tony put it out, I was already thinking. Cause see, I'd already been, you know, just like a lot of us, our experiences push, you know, where we've been, and so my experiences pushed. You know, I've been through this, so I've seen it. I used to be on one side of the fence all the time, where it was like, yo, I'm not showing no emotions, you know, or matter of fact, sorry, I started differently. I was where I felt like I should. I was listening to my mother and women and stuff. We always talk about how we don't show our emotions. You know, I had a friend of mine. I'll make it real quick. I had a friend of mine. I know he lost his lady, and I couldn't understand why she left him from that standpoint. He loved that girl, he adored her, and but he was the type that he shared his emotions. He poured his soul. That's what he did. And it was a little overbearing for this particular young lady, and I couldn't understand it. I was just lost. Like, I understand how this man is putting his emotions out there, and that can be overbearing to you. You see what I'm saying? But don't get me wrong. Over the course of time and over the course of life, I met some folks, and it was like, sometimes there's the term TMI, too much information. It applies at times. There's times when some people have told me too much information. I've checked that in that I didn't need to know. I don't actually need to be sitting here with you. I don't know what to do with you right now. Like, do I hug you, dog? You're crying. You are like full out baby crying right now. And as another grown man, that makes me uncomfortable. So yes, maybe there's a time to pull back on some of your emotions at certain times. Like I said, it's experiences that'll take you through it, your own experiences and everything else. I am right on the fence. I say it's a delicate balance. You have to navigate it. You have to find that balance for yourself. You would think that, the answer would be, oh yeah, absolutely, always show your emotions. But, this is why we have spouses, friends, people that we can go to, because you want to be in safe spaces when you do bear your, you are going to bear your emotions or whatever. You want to do it with people that are going to be non-judgmental of you, not try to use it for their gain or their advantage against you. So yeah, there's times to bear it and there's times to pull it back. We're not talking about it in terms of relationships, but I know even from an overall standpoint, and you just navigate the balance. That can be a difficult thing, but definitely find a balance between showing the emotions and keeping them in. Either or, to one scale or the other, can be dangerous. Like Rhino was saying, you don't want them to, and Terrence was saying, you don't want them to keep them all in, and then they come out in an unhealthy way. You know what I mean? So that's why we have our outlets and things like that. You find your outlets for them when you can express yourself or when you made that decision not to. But other than that, yes, delicate balance. And I'll leave it there because I'm basically just echoing what everybody else was saying. But yeah, it's definitely a delicate balance to the emotions.
All right, Emotions is a song from H-Town.
Make you cry sometimes. Oh man, I'm sorry. I hurt your ears on that just now.
Make you sad sometimes. Yeah.
But,
You're there.
Yes, sir.
Oh boy.
But I'm thinking about this, and there's a whole lot of flip-flop in me. Because, like, I remember when I was a young boy.
When I was a young warthog.
I remember being an emotional young boy, right? And trying to share those emotions with people around me and get them to empathize with me. You can imagine how that went.
You learned that first lesson. No one cares.
Wait a minute. I think the soundboard has something for that.
Really?
Okay, all right. You just pull a laugh track on this.
So, needless to say, it didn't go very well. But you can go too far to the other side where you just keep it all in, like you need prune juice, and just get stopped up to the point where you're just a powder keg ready to blow. Like, I think the secret is somewhere in the middle, to learn when to express your emotions, to learn who you can express them to safely without them either looking at you lower, losing respect, thinking you're a punk, all of those things, because all of those things can happen. And the same people that will tell you, come on, share it with me. And 5 minutes later, he's just sorry.
That's why I don't tell people.
This is true, man.
I learned the hard way. just some things you just don't share with people because they're not going to look at you the right way. I actually went to somebody seeking help on a problem that I had, and I wish I never said anything.
But here's the benefit of being a man of a certain age. You don't give AF anymore. So you get the benefit of being as emotionless or as emotional as you want or need in that particular time. And if someone has an opinion about it, they can keep it to themselves because it doesn't matter. But I'll say this. But speaking seriously, as a man, I think you should lean more to the side of emotional restraint. Mainly because a lot of times it's not efficient. So a lot of times if it's to the point where it's driving an intense emotion in you, a lot of times what you need at that point in time is not to experience that emotion. A lot of times you need a result. Like, I just lost my job. I just had this. This person's in the hospital. Blah, 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 blah. Sometimes you gotta, and I know this sounds unhealthy as can be, sometimes you gotta put that stuff to the side. Put it on the back burner, put it on simmer, and handle your business. And go in a room and break down. Then go in a room and talk to somebody. But on average, productivity before emotional expression. And that sounds toxic as can be, but that's our lot in life. that is our job.
Yeah, that sounds about an accurate assessment.
So, just to be clear, when it comes to expressing emotion versus holding emotion, like, if you can pick a side of the fence or even in between, just real quick answer, where do y'all land?
Right on the fence. So right in between.
Okay. Terrence?
Yeah, I'm on the fence.
Ronald?
I change sides as the situation dictates.
Smart man.
I like that one.
Good answer. Good answer.
That's a good answer.
Okay, so let's switch subjects again with another subject that has nothing to do with the previous one. Okay, social media. Everybody's on social media. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, the metaverse. And there's others that I don't even know. You know, what was it? Quippy Up. I think that was dead.
That was real short-lived, yeah. That was real short-lived.
LinkedIn, you know, there's a bunch of them out there.
LinkedIn's still trying to do its thing.
Yeah, LinkedIn's pretty good. But in social media, one of the things that if you spend any time or put any effort into it, you'll notice that there seems to be so much division. You know, red versus blue. You know, elephants versus donkeys. Liberals versus conservatives. You know, Caucasians versus the world.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, naturally born Africans versus African Americans. You know, men versus women. Black men versus black women.
I want to say, come on, man. Let's get to the real division. Marvel versus DC.
You know, Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat versus Tekken versus King of Fighters. You know, who wins? Who throws the best?
Soul Calibur.
But anyway, seriously though, there's so much division going on in social media. how do you manage and how do you navigate the social media waters without all of that division seeping in you?
Wow, you just gotta know how to sort through the fact and the fiction. You gotta understand that some people are just spouting rhetoric. Some people are they're just trying to get a lot of likes so they can feel famous, so they can call themselves an influencer. And you would think with the world's knowledge at our fingertips, it would make us all smarter. It's not, because there's too many idiots out there just recycling the same nonsense. And you as a person, it's your responsibility to know what train of thought to follow. I mean, we all have minds of our own. We all have thoughts and opinions of our own. All right? We can't get on social media and allow people with wrong opinions and wrong ideas and their vaunted degrees and whatever subject they study to change what we think and believe. We can get in there and dig and find information for ourselves and make an informed decision ourselves. I mean, just because someone tells me they're a astrophysicist and they know how the universe works, I'm going to call nonsense right away. I didn't see your grades in college. How do I know you really applied yourself to the information? And for that matter, how do I know all the information you read is even right? So if you're going to spout something, at least be honest and truthful and straightforward about it. Don't come at me like, oh, you're some kind of god of knowledge. Because I'm going to slap you down right there. I'm not going to say anything, but in my mind, I'm going to be thinking, this guy's an idiot. What does he really know? Let me go and Google and find out for myself. Right. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to let somebody who's probably just some keyboard warrior talking all this trash, talking all this nonsense, talking like they're tough, who, if they were standing in front of me, probably wouldn't even dare say that. I'm not going to let them tell me what's what. I'm going to find out for myself. I'm going to always have my own opinion. That's why if someone gets on and say, the new Power Rangers movie is terrible. Okay, well, that's your opinion. I'm going to watch it for myself. And I watched it and enjoyed it. What was so terrible about it? I'm going to follow what my mind leads, the path my mind laid me down. So that's my take on social media. Don't let it corrupt you. Know thyself, as the Oracle in the Matrix says.
Okay, so for me, how I filter through this stuff and the noise sometimes of social media, it's really kind of a almost too simplistic of an answer, but it's my answer. I just don't feed into it. I mean, I'm honestly not a person who's on social media a ton. I do it, to keep up with certain people, maybe a couple of things that I'm into. I jokingly mentioned like Marvel, DC, certain sports teams, things like that. But I don't get too wrapped up in the conversations because, and I feel like this applies to, well, actually, this does apply to all of us. We all know what it's like to grow up in an age without it. So because we grew up without it, I think number one, the pull to be there isn't as strong. Number two, kind of like what Ronald was talking about, we still have that mindset of, you know what? Before I just accept what's here, I'm going to go check something else. I'm going to check an alternative and get a second opinion. We were absolutely brought up in that era of you can't believe what you see and you have to go look for an answer. And that willingness to go look for the answer, I think, does and means something as to why we're willing to go the extra mile to find a source outside of Google or DuckDuckGo or Edge or whatever, Safari, and find your answer in a book on your own, or talk to the source, get it from the source. And that's how I eliminate getting caught up in the divisiveness. When you mentioned the question initially, I immediately thought of a post, go figure, that I saw on social media, and it was a picture of a rock, and the caption was, just to prove a point, I want to see how, just to prove a point, it was something to the effect of being divisive, and how divisive and all over the place social media is. It was just a picture of a rock, and in the comments there was over 1,000 comments. This isn't a rock, this is a stone, this is graphite, this is a pebble, this isn't a rock. Then they posted a picture of Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yes.
I was goofy. I said this is an infinity stone. It's just, but the point was, on social media, even something as simple as a picture of a rock can lead to a couple thousand comments about it being something other than the picture of a rock. And it's just, it's goofy, it's silly, it's unfortunate, and to me sometimes it feels like there's way too many people with too much time on their hands to sit and respond to everything that they see. But that's a whole different conversation, I feel. Anyway, bottom line, because things like that can happen, no, I unplug. I distance myself from it. I only get in, get out, get what I'm looking for, and I'm done. Literally, I'm done. You got it.
How long ago was that post?
Earlier this week.
It doesn't matter how long ago that was.
Uh-oh. You're going to call.
I deserve that. I deserve
I'm
that.
sorry.
I deserve that.
I could resist.
If you were really thrown in, how long ago was that post about The Rock? It doesn't matter how long ago that post was about The Rock. Okay. It's only setting up to get us in trouble.
Well played.
Yeah, well played. Nice. Good throw in. All right, so we're talking about the social media and how to deal with the divide that it creates. So, I guess one for me, I mean, I love you guys' answers. Terrence, you're spot on with me from the standpoint of you talking about the generational, like, you know what I mean? We're from a generation where it wasn't there. Social media was. So, right. So we don't have to have it. We're not as connected to our phone. That's fantastic. And it gives us the unique ability to be able to just, okay, I'm cutting that off. That's it. I don't care about it anymore. You know what I mean? Phone buzz, stuff, whatever. I'm watching the football game or something else. I'm doing something else. So that's definitely a good weapon. One of the things that I was going to say, and one of the things my thought process was, as we were sitting there thinking, I was like, social media, like Tony stated earlier, he stated it, if you notice, he stated it as a fact. There's a divide. It's going to be a divide because there's a divide in the way people think. So as long as, no two people ever agree on, on everything, right? You're not going to get, when you're talking about masses of social media, all these folks being on there, so people don't agree. So there's going to be all kinds of, this person's idea, that person's idea. And, how you navigate it is just to understand also, too, that the opinions, they used to have monikers and stuff like that, right? They used to have, they still do on some certain news stations, or like if you've ever been up early in the morning, you hope there's prepaid things. The thoughts and opinions of this particular program are the thoughts and opinions of this particular program, and not meant to represent the entire Fox News and Fox Nation and whatever the case may be. We don't represent everyone. We just represent the specific and internal, this vacuum cleaner specifically. Thank you. It's like, but that social media doesn't do that. And people don't approach social media sometimes with that mindset. Approach it with the same mindset. Whoever it is that's on there is speaking their opinion, their mind, whatever they're, they see it in the world as, and you can accept it or deny it, not like wholeheartedly from a standpoint, unless it's, if it aligns with your values, it aligns with what you're thinking about, then it already, you had your opinion probably formed, preemptively. If you were on the fence about an opinion or something to that effect, I'm gonna go back to what we were saying earlier. Go find, like Ryan said, go find another source for yourself. Use social media. If you're gonna use it objectively from both sides. People settle on that one. That's making sense, and then I'm not listening to anybody else. That doesn't make any sense either. Why? Because you want a quick answer, either in detail, unplugged, or like I say, one of my big things, just understand that it is the thoughts and opinions of one person or that person creating, as you've heard this term flat around a lot, right? The narrative, creating their narrative, right? Once you understand that it's just one person's narrative, you can help navigate that from that standpoint too. And then just like anything else in your life, if it's toxic to you, then get rid of it. If you overdo anything, I said something about this a little bit earlier, you can overdo anything. Take everything in moderation, including social media, because you'll get pulled around, and especially if you don't have your own opinion, you'll get pulled left, you'll get pulled right, you'll be everywhere and never have, what your opinion is, you won't know.
Right.
All right, now I'll leave it there.
The stories and information posted here are artistic works of fact, fiction, and falsehood. Only a fool would take anything posted here as a fact. That's the disclaimer that needs to be all over social media.
Every single time.
Absolutely.
I don't know what happened. It should be mandatory to put that on there as I don't own the rights to this music.
Right?
You sure enough have to put that one on there.
Yeah.
As in, even earlier, we don't own the rights. WWE, don't come after. We too small for this. Don't you come after us with that. We shouldn't have to say that.
WWE, come after us. We want the smoke. All right? If not to make us a little bigger.
I'm about to say, you want to use them to go viral.
Yes.
Might not be a bad
Well,
idea.
you
Right?
know, man.
You might.
Meanwhile, the wrestling fans have said nothing.
So y'all can't see this, but this is me doing the just bring it.
Oh man.
But anyway, social media division is divided out there, y'all. Nobody likes each other. Morning people don't like evening people. Cats don't like dogs. Tom don't like Jerry. Butch don't like either one of them.
Hatfields don't like McCoys.
Hatfields don't like McCoys.
Star Wars fans don't like Star Trek fans.
Don't like Stargate fans.
Don't like Star Galactica fans.
Don't like Alf.
Can't stand DT.
Like
right.
Everything. There's no unity. But I'd actually like to use that as an opportunity to say, but that ain't what we about. We are about that unity. We are about that coming together.
UNITY.
I say unity.
See how he backed me up on that? That's what we're talking about.
Foolishness. Togetherness. Together as foolish. But not to sow discord, not to put one side against the other. We're on the side of righteousness. We're on the side of correctness. We're on the side of trying to unify.
Exactly. And with that being said, we'll take it a step further. We were joking, but I'm going to use the example Star Wars and Star Trek, right? you know, 3 of us are Trekkies. One of us is not so much. I don't think it has caused any major division. You know, one of us might get left out the conversation a little bit when it turns that way, but it's not the end of the world. You know, conversely, one of us is not a huge sports fan. The other 3 of us are pretty much into sports. But again, it doesn't, like, in the friendship, we can still manage to get along and deal with each other and work, I think, pretty well on this platform. So it can be done, people. And it don't mean that you got to be, like, completely complicit and like, oh, but I have to like the same thing. No, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. We can share them. We can agree. We can disagree. We can agree to disagree. There's room for all of it. It doesn't have to be a all or nothing type of thing for everything.
All right, fellas. Well, we've been at this for a good amount of time. Anybody got anything to add before we wrap this show up? All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to pass to Terrence for the close.
So, as always, I want to take a moment to ask our listeners if there's anything that we failed to cover in these wide-ranging topics tonight. Please interact. Drop a comment or two. Tell us what you think. We're open to all types of opinions. That's how good discussions are had. That's how good ideas are found. As always, thank y'all for listening. Like, share, subscribe. God bless you tonight. Deuce.
Live long,
Bye,
prosper, and may the force be with you.
There you go.
Like it.
Perfect. Bye, everybody.